let's try and continue that theme of creating, let's see, how do you say it? Questioning through creating, questioning through making. I think that's good. That's what I'm going to talk some more about. So my name's Kyle McDonald. There should be a slide up there. Thanks. My name's Kyle McDonald. You can find me on Twitter. I want to give a shout out to Open Frameworks and to FatLab. These are two organizations that I'm part of, and Jeremy mentioned Open Frameworks. It's a great toolkit for working with these kinds of things that we're discussing right now. And FatLab, we're always experimenting with these techniques. And Aram is also part of FatLab. He'll talk tomorrow. So the first, I want to talk about two techniques. One is 3D scanning and one is face tracking. When I was, I don't know, finishing college, maybe 3 years ago, I started experimenting with 3D scanning when I found out that you can do it with just a projector and a camera. And I thought, this is great. This is going to, revolutionize how artists are working with interaction. Now that I know you just need these two things, and the only special trick is software, I'm going to make all these tools so that artists and designers can play with 3D scanning. It turned out to be a little harder than I thought. It looked like this at first, just totally glitchy, no order. But over time, I learned more about how to write the code involved in 3D scanning, and I started taking some nicer looking scans of people, but it was really still, and you could only do so much with a still image. But even with those still scans, there was a lot of experimentation going on. I kept working on it. After maybe a year of working on this 3D scanning technique, I got something like 60 frames per second of scanning, and it was enough to get some kind of new and strange-looking video that I hadn't seen before. And I thought, okay, this is great. This is the moment where I'm going to share it with everyone, and people are going to make lots of great stuff. So I put out the tools, and people started making dance movies, and title credits for festivals and music videos. And I worked on some of those music videos too. So again, this is about a year before the Kinect came out. And if anyone's familiar with the Kinect, it's actually a 3D scanner disguised as a gaming peripheral. But before the Kinect came out, these were the kind of experimentations we were doing, the experiments we were doing. Making things like photo booths. That had these strange transitions between different faces. This was originally installed at Ars Electronica in Linz in Austria. And it was a machine that kind of, you sat down, it took a photo of you like this. You can make whatever faces you want. And then it would render with these particles, these crazy transitions between people. So I worked on this with a few other artists, Zach Lieberman, Theo Watson, and Daito Manabe. One of the things that's really important about playing with these tools, like at a low level, is that you have different insight into what you can accomplish with them. So when the Kinect came out, people were thinking, well, what do we do with the 3D scanner? We haven't had access to this before. But if you're making a 3D scanner from scratch, then you start getting ideas about, you get ideas about projection mapping or different kinds of interaction, things that maybe you wouldn't see from just taking a consumer product and reverse engineering it. So I'm really a big fan of taking algorithms and trying to find the best way of implementing them in a really democratic way that will make the technique more accessible for everyone to experiment with. Because I feel like you can discover some unusual things that you won't find just by reversing commercial products. So anyway, the Kinect eventually came out about a year and a half ago, and we were seeing experiments like this. This was built with Open Frameworks. It's from Theo Watson and Emily Gobiel. Experiments like that, and what else? I don't know. There's some great stuff. Robert Hodgin was doing really weird body manipulation experiments. Friend Dan Wilcox. This is very important media art. I really like this one. So after the Kinect has been out for about a year, people are really starting to understand, oh, this is a really general way of sensing things. We can do all sorts of stuff with this. It doesn't have to be about 3D scanning, and it doesn't have to be about gestures, and it doesn't have to be about anything that's been fed to us. We can think about, what does it mean for someone to swing in a star field, and what does that look like and feel like? And maybe the Kinect is a good sensor for detecting that movement on the swing. So this is a really kind of special experience that maybe wouldn't have happened if you were just waiting for the next, Kinect game to be released. It's the kind of thing that only happens when you have lots of people all over the world experimenting with new technology and appropriating it. Browsing the web, experimental dance. And now there's some really good hacking going on with combining Kinect with DSLR footage. This is from a friend, James George.
Rocking. So great.
So he's exploring like a completely new kind of cinema no one has ever seen before. He's really interested in the Kinect as a sort of filmmaking tool, which Microsoft surely was not planning on when they released their device. So it's amazing what you can do when you put something out there in a really open way. The problem with Kinect was that the hackers had to kind of reverse engineer it in order to make it more democratized. It was maybe, I think, 4 or 5 months after it was released that Microsoft finally jumped on the bandwagon and said, here are some drivers for using this. I think they could have really nurtured the community a lot better by releasing them earlier, and maybe even just, even if you don't know what's going to happen, maybe the drivers aren't done, maybe things are a little buggy, but if you get stuff out there soon and you try and nurture a community, you can build something really amazing with all of these millions of people who are interested in this and hacking on this stuff. This is where I think it's going next. This is some cool technology with Kinect for doing really high-resolution 3D scanning. So a short interlude. I want to talk about Japanese pop music. So this is a music video made by a friend of mine, Daito Manabe, with a bunch of people in Tokyo. This is for a Japanese pop band named Perfume. Has anyone heard of Perfume before? Anybody? Maybe I think it's a very Japanese thing, but it's kind of like one of the biggest pop bands in Japan. They make really electronic music, like you just heard, and Japan is full of what are called otaku, these really obsessive, compulsive fans that will collect absolutely everything involved with a band or something they're excited about. So what happened was they released this motion capture data for this band on GitHub, on this place where everyone was sharing code, and people started remixing it in really interesting ways. Using laser projectors. Some of them are really creepy. And the point I want to show you with this is there's kind of this infinite amount of energy out there, and if you put more of your stuff out there and you engage with all of the people who are doing things because they love it, not because they're getting paid for it, you can't go wrong. You can only get back from that. So I'm going to switch to face tracking now. I released this tool let's see.
Unzip it from
I
there.
released this
Start
tool
with the osculator patch.
about a year ago called Face OSC. And what happens is it's a free tool. You just go to GitHub and you can download it. You can also get the source code for it. It looks something like this. I'm going to give it a shot right now. I don't know how the light works in here. There we go. So what it's doing is it's tracking my face, and that's pretty cool. It's got all of these little details that it's watching for. This is based on some really kind of pioneering research from a researcher in Australia named Jason Saragi, and he's been using it for things like facial puppetry. Or facial expression recognition, trying to classify expressions as angry or joyful or sad. I think this was for the US Department of Defense, actually. But this is kind of a recurring theme of technology being developed for the military or for defense agencies or for governments, maybe to track people. Maybe the next time that you're at a bar, your face is being watched and categorized. Actually, I have an easy trick for you. Let me show you something while I'm up here. It can't find me. So next time you really are worried about being tracked, just go like this. So I imagine a future where everyone is just walking around like this all the time, trying to avoid being tracked by the government. Okay, so now you know, this is the secret, but engaging with these technologies is something that's really important for everyone to do, because if we're not engaging with them, then it's going to be kind of forced upon us by the people who kind of have power and have enough money and time to develop these technologies. So as let's say we're all creators here. I think you're all creators. I'm a creator, you're all creators. As creators, we have to be the ones that are taking these technologies and imagining what they might mean in our future, rather than accepting a future that's been given to us. So after I made this tool, which is kind of tracking your face, I put it online. It's spitting out some data over the network on your computer, so maybe you can send that data about your face movement to another computer or to another program on your computer. And after I posted this, people started doing kind of remixes of these, not remixes, more like people started inventing new applications and imagining the future with this app, Face OSC.
Playing in this 3D scene, and I move my head forward, it goes faster. When I move my head backwards, it slows down.
So this guy has been experimenting with like flying a plane around, using his facial expressions, and also typing on a keyboard by moving his head around. This guy's really interested in dynamic typography, like what does a font look like for this expression? I really like this one. Okay, so she just raised her eyebrows, right? It says, check your Twitter. And then when she checks her Twitter, you can see it just sent a tweet. It posted a tweet. Tweet with your brow, bro. That's pretty great. Some people are making really crazy noise music with it. So they're using all of these different parameters that it's tracking to generate these noisy sounds. Some people are making kind of more traditional noise. And that's just the beginning. So I put this online about a year ago, and since then I've seen about, I don't know, maybe 50 or 60 videos posted to Vimeo. People who are students, people who are interaction designers, people who are artists, people who are programmers, people who just want to see, what is the future going to look like and want to have that feeling of like, what is it doing to track me? But there's so much variety. It's the kind of variety that I never could have found by myself, because my imagination is this big, and maybe even if everyone's imagination is that big, together it's way bigger than any of us. This one's pretty creepy. Can you see that moon? There's like a little moon right there. This is the Octocat. That's a creature from GitHub.
Capable of tracking.
This is great. So this is a really good example of kind of staring at a technology for long enough to figure out what's going on in the background and try and understand what that says about our future and how we want to use that feature of the technology. So this is a friend, Greg Borenstein, and he's using Face OSC with a whiteboard. So it's initially tracking his face, but now he wants to see maybe he can trick it. And he can, just by making some marks on the whiteboard. It's just enough for Face OSC to detect it. If he gets rid of the mouth, it can't see it anymore. Just a nose, sometimes it can see it. Maybe with a jawline, it's more stable. So he's kind of reversing this technology and understanding what is, what is coming from academia. Again, like what's being developed right now, and how can we use it and understand it better and make it more accessible to other people. So not only is he doing this experiment, but he's also posting a video of this experiment online with an explanation, so everyone else can understand it too. I like this one. This is a game she made for a younger sister called Eat the Letter, and you just move the mouth around until you can chomp the letter. I guess it's for learning the alphabet. Or maybe you can use face tracking to track your mood over the course of the day. So I just showed this video from Jason where he's tracking facial expression recognition. And again, I'm pretty sure this was done for the U.S. Department of Defense. Who knows what they're using it for? But in this case, maybe it's a similar application. Maybe it's about watching someone for a prolonged duration, but it means something a little different when you're watching yourself than when someone else is watching you. Maybe there's something we can learn from just, maybe leaving our camera on all the time and watching ourselves.
I shift the pitch curve, and when I move my head right or left, I control the speed of the generated speech.
Was speaking time here.
So she's kind of a sound artist and doing a lot of experimental sound research. It's great. I would never have thought of this. More noise. Exploring panoramas. Again, this is like interaction design that maybe wouldn't have been accessible if you have to worry about programming at this really high level. Like when I wrote the library for Face OSC, I had to rely on kind of an extensive background of like programming and computer science in order to interface to that library. But once I brought that language to a different level, which is using OSC, this kind of network protocol that everyone has access to, then it made it more possible for people to experiment in whatever platform they're comfortable with, whether it's processing or open frameworks or Flash or MaxMSP. I think that's a really important point, is that whenever you can kind of create a bridge, it's your responsibility. You have to build that bridge. If you're at one place and someone else is somewhere else, then you have to make a connection between you and them so that they can have access to all the same things you do. More sound synthesis. I really like this one. So it's just as he opens his mouth, it shows a picture of Arnold Schwarzenegger more and more angry. This is Jeremy, actually. Jeremy connected the eyebrows to a servo so he can control like something physical with his eyebrows. And this resonates with some other experiments I've been doing recently. I'll show you in a second.
Stop yawning and get back to work.
This is another continuous...
Stop yawning and get back to work.
It's funny. See, it makes a difference if it's Big Brother versus if it's you, programming and interfacing this, designing this interface by yourself. If you saw this, coming out of the metro station or something. You're walking down, and then all of a sudden you yawn and you hear a voice, "Stop yawning, get back to work." You'd be a little freaked out. But when you're experimenting with it yourself, you start to have some control over that idea, and you start to, now it's yours. It's not someone forcing it onto you. You're kind of guiding that future a little bit. Because it's going to happen. That's the point. It's going to happen regardless. All of these things are going to happen. It just matters where it happens. It depends whether it's happening in some closed government room somewhere, or in academia and only getting published in papers that you have to pay a subscription to get to the journal and all that sort of thing, or if it's happening like in a really open way, and everyone has access to it and can decide what it's going to look like.
Meu comportamento diante musical.
I still don't understand this one. So I don't know if he's triggering the sounds or what, or if he's just like playing around. I don't know. It's kind of nice to stumble across something you don't understand at all, that was made with something you created. Animating whales, everything. So everything that I could never have thought of, people are making just because I made a little bridge. And anyway, the point I want you to remember is that you can get so much more back from giving things away. So I've done some experiment with a friend, Arturo Castro, that we've turned into an installation called Faces. This was his initial work, exploring face substitution. It's working, it's pretty good. I followed up with some of my own experiments. So I turned myself into him. Kind of works. Tried some other people. These are my best impressions. Let's see if it works, actually. Maybe it works in here. This is my friend, Daito Manabe, up there. So I'm going to give the rest of this talk as Daito Manabe. Or maybe Brad Pitt instead. Maybe this is more pleasant. I don't know. Yeah, more experiments. Again, this is kind of the science fiction thing that, like, if you saw this coming from the government, coming from, like, being forced upon you, it means one thing. But then when you're implementing it yourself, you can kind of guide it a little bit and make some guesses about where it might be going and what it might be used for. So anyway, like the 3D scanning stuff, we've made a lot of work with this. We've done a lot of interactive installations, just straightforward media art. I've been doing my own sound experiments. It's way easier to play a real drum kit, actually. Yeah. So I want to finish with one last project, which goes back to what Jeremy was just showing, and hopefully it can tie into what Kate's about to talk about. This is a workshop I just did last week in Helsingør in Denmark, north of Copenhagen, with Daito Manabe. So Daito is kind of an expert on electrostimulus, which is using electrodes to actuate muscles in your body. So kind of like, forcing your fingers to move by attaching electrodes to them, or forcing your face to make certain expressions. So we thought, it would be interesting to connect the output from my application that's doing the tracking into his hardware, which is doing the actuating. So this was an experiment where we connected Daito's face to this guy's face, and whenever Daito smiled, this guy smiled. It turns into more of a grimace, though. Yeah. So maybe it's not so pleasant, but it's a start. It's, you know. Anyway, thank you very much, and I'd like to invite up Kate.